what can I say? I've been having dreams and always wondering what they meant. And so I'm in that stage where I'm sort of decoding my dreams. And I didn't realize that there was a forum where I could actually discuss that. So to know that you had a space to talk about dreams was amazing for me. I am currently in the Gambia, but I lived in the U.S. for many years. I've been here over a year, and my dreams have amplified since I came to this side of the world. So I hope that answered your question.
Cool. Yeah, that's super exciting. So I know that you have your podcast and your show about your repatriation, and that's how you ended up over there. So tell me a little bit about that and why you feel like your dreams are such a big part of that.
Well, the dreams actually started in the States. And it started with just hearing a knocking. And I was just like jumping up out of my sleep, wondering who's knocking at my door. Why are they knocking instead of ringing the doorbell? And I would get up and no one was there. So then I said, well, maybe it's the door to the house. I'd run there as well. Look both ways. No one's outside. There's not anything moving, no creatures stirring during the night. So now I'm like, this is happening for about a month. And I realized that this is serious. Like someone is knocking in my sleep. And so I start to look it up, and everything you see has some sort of negative connotation, right? No, it's death knocking at your door. Don't answer, all this scary stuff. And I was like, no, I can't look it up in this way. I need to look it up from a spiritual way. And so when I would put spiritual in the search, it would come up the variety of open-minded ways to look at it. So the first time that I stopped hearing the knocking and I had a dream, it was about an Egyptian woman. She was literally tall and lean and beautiful, like 6 or 7 feet, 7 feet tall at least, walking with 2 dogs. I think I said they had bodies like dogs and cat faces or something, right? Duh. When I Google it, what comes up? The Egyptian Sphinx. And I'm like, that's what I saw in my dream. That's what I saw. So now I'm trying to figure out what goddess was this? And is this an ancestor? And what is the connection? And why is it that once I stopped hearing that knocking, there's this symbol of Egypt? I'm already like, I know I have a connection to Africa. So what is this about? And then after that, other dreams just started coming through, and they were coming through with more details and they were more vivid. I was already thinking about traveling to the continent because I at that point, I had planned a trip. It's like the height of the pandemic. So I grabbed my son. We went to Ghana, Sierra Leone, and then Gambia. And I really liked Gambia. And I said, you know what? When my lease is up, I'm not coming back to this. Like, I'm done. That's it. I'm selling my stuff and I'm moving. And everybody's just like, we knew you always had a connection to Africa. You've always been very cultural, but no one saw it coming. So it came as a shock to a lot of people. But from what I saw in my dreams and the messages that I was getting, all the signs and synchronicities around me, I was like, yeah, this is the thing to do, and I didn't hesitate. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad that you really listened to your heart and to your dreams, literally, and that you just followed that like feeling that you were getting. Super cool.
Yeah, and I didn't know, not to cut you off, I didn't know if it would be Egypt per se. So what I did do was it led me to get an African ancestry DNA test done, right?
Makes
so
sense.
Now I have some sort of springboard, and that left my results at 100% Mende from Sierra Leone. So now I have a place to start on the continent, and hopefully I will make it to Egypt because I still have 51 other countries, 50 countries to visit because I've been to 4. Mm-hmm.
Nice. Wow. So that's really cool that you were able to like find your ancestry and like tap deeper into that. What was that transition like for you? I know you had visited a couple times, but do you feel like you just fit right in, or are you still kind of figuring it out as you go?
Well, what can I say? I went to Senegal in like 1996. So again, it was already there. And I just got up one day and was like, I'm going to be 26 years old. I'm buying myself a ticket to the continent. And everybody's like, what kind of birthday gift is that? Like, where did that come from? You don't want to have a party? I was like, no, parties are for other people. You know, I want to do this for myself. And that's what I did. I bought myself a ticket. I went with an African dance and drumming troupe. I didn't know any of them. I'm a house music dancer, but I am not a professionally trained dancer. So I went and trained with them, got up 6 a.m. every morning. I was there for 30 days and I loved it. And I had something spiritual happen at that time, but I wasn't conscious, right? And guess when it happened? When I was sleeping.
Of course.
I was sleeping on the beach and I saw shooting stars. And I had never seen a shooting star before. 26 years of my life in the States, right? Never saw a shooting star. So I'm laying there on the beach. I'm in the sleeping bag. The rest of the people are sleeping a distance from me. And I look up and I see this shooting star. And I'm like, oh, like, what is that? So I'm just kind of frozen. And another one comes. And so I jump up to tell everyone, and I can't move. It literally feels like something is sitting on my chest. No words are coming out my mouth. And I'm just like, and for some reason, I wasn't scared. I knew it was a feeling of stillness. And the only thing I could hear was, do you believe me now?
Wow, that gave me goosebumps.
And I was like, and mind you, at that time, I was, I'm an atheist. I'm living the world this way. And when that came across, I was like, I don't know if I believe there's a man in the sky, but I do believe there is a higher power. I believe it now. And so that was the message I left with. But maybe at that time, I was supposed to stay where I was,
Yeah.
But I didn't.
That's cool. Yeah. It seems like a moment of alignment, even if you weren't aware of it at the time. It was pushing you closer to, where you were meant to be. Super cool.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you about how your dreams got more vivid, but first I'm interested too in knowing how were you, so you were an atheist and then now you're getting into your spiritual journey further. What was that like for you? I've always interested in figuring out how people go from that to finding their way.
Well, I will say a lack of faith. When you don't have faith, when you really don't even have a concept of what that word means, how are you going to convince yourself to believe in something that you don't see? You take your existence for granted, right? You're not thinking about, well, how did the trees and the plant, you see yourself as disconnected from those things. So
makes sense.
When you begin to see yourself as a part of the world and that you're really one, we come from one source. That is when you can say, whatever you want to call that source, right? He, she, I like to say he, she, goes by many names, but there is only one. And so for those who don't believe, I get it. They have a right to that. But there will be a time when you recognize that there is something greater than yourself. And what that looks like is, different for everyone. But for me, I realized it probably came from trauma, right? Whether it was, I like to refer to it as post-traumatic slavery disorder, right? Because what sort of creator would let a people that was so royal and kind suffer such circumstances, right? That's one way. And then the other thing was when my dad was taken from me before I was 2 years old. So I was like, who would do that? Who would allow someone to come all the way back from Vietnam to be killed in a car accident, saving his friends. How does that happen? So you imagine trying to explain that to a child. So it wasn't until I was a teenager one day, my mom said something to me and I was like, I don't believe in God. And she where did that come from? I knew you were kind of into Billie Holiday and I thought that was a little strange. I know you used to talk to dead people when you were a toddler, right? See, now the stuff starts to unfold. So when I was 2, my dad passed before that time, but I was still talking to him. They would come into the room and I'd have toys laid out and they'd be like, are you playing with your imaginary friend? Come on, there's no such thing as imaginary friends. You don't see daddy right there? I'm pointing to him. I'm looking right at him. So when I was little, they kind of was like, oh, okay, she's just kind of going through something. But then when I got into my tweens, it became a concern because now it's starting to be that he's coming to my mom and telling her to come with him. And when the dead come to you in your sleep, religion and the conditioning teaches us to fear that. And so my mom talked to her friends who were from the Caribbean, because, I grew up in Brooklyn. My mom's from the South. And they were like, oh, no problem. Take her to the Obia man, the candle shop, the bodega, right? So she takes me to the Caribbean man on the corner that has all the candles and the Santeria stuff. And I have to do a holy bath. And now I'm upset because I'm like, how could she allow me to have this man throw these liquids on me and burn incense and pray around me? Mind you, I'm standing there naked in a basin and he's praying over me like he's performing some sort of exorcism. And so I was upset because I really felt like I was molested. This man never touched me. My mother was there the whole time, but I felt molested. So from that age of 14 now, right, until I'm my first dream, the knocking, I had no dreams. My dreams were blocked as a result of this thing that this man did. I thought that was normal because I don't even really remember anything from age 6 to 14. I have no memories of that time. Now, if something were shown to me, I think it would trigger my memory. I remember folding a towel with my mom. And I was like, oh, I remember these towels. And she's like, yeah, I had them before you were a baby. You wonder, how can a towel last that long, right? When you grow up in a house like mine with a mother that has guest towels, you don't use her towels, okay? So they hung in the bathroom for show. So she's like, of course you remember them. And I'm like, no, I remember when there was blood on them. She's like, what? I said, yeah, I remember Dad, my father told me, go get the towel. And when I gave it to him, I didn't know what he did with it, but I knew when I got the towel back, it had blood on it. And my mom was like, she didn't want to talk about it. And I was like, why are you acting like that? She's like, no, you can't remember this. There's no way you can remember this. I'm like, remember what? So apparently, like I said, my dad went to Vietnam. Mom didn't hear from him. So now she gets involved with my stepdad, who's 15 years older than her. So now my dad just pops up at the door one day after 2 years, almost a year and a half away in Vietnam. And she has to tell him now that she is involved with someone else in carrying his child. So he's coming back with the ring, ready to claim her and his daughter, right? So they sit on the bed opposite each other. And when she tells him she's expecting, my dad was a big dude. He literally turns around and kind of swats at her. She falls off the bed and hits her head on the radiator. He yells for me to go get the towel. So I don't know what's going on in the room. I just remember the towel. Putting that towel in my hand triggered that memory to go get this thing. So she's like, I don't know how you remember that. She told me the whole story. I'm like, okay, it's not that big a deal. I had to be like, 7, 8. She's like, no, you were not that age. I'm like, what are you talking about? I had to be. She goes and gets my dad's death certificate. It's 1969. I wasn't even 2 years old yet when he passed. But I remember going to get that towel. I didn't know what happened, but I remembered it. And so from that point on, my dad and I had a bond. I remember tricycles. I can tell you where he took me. It's weird, the things I remember going. He would come and pick me up and take me to my grandparents' house because now they were no longer together. I remember all of that. And she never told me any of these things. So it just kind of blew her mind, right? And so now, again, this is probably after the whole spiritual bath thing. We fast forward, I start having these dreams, knocking on the door like it's time for you to wake up now. That first dream was the Egyptian woman. The second big dream I had was that I was on a plane. There was a pilot sitting next to me. And I remember that it was a Caucasian, thin man sitting next to me. And I'm thinking this must be a helicopter because why am I sitting right next to him? But I turn around and there's like a plane load full of people. We're dry, everyone's smiling, laughing, the plane is flying. We crash into a building like the Twin Towers. And we go straight through the floor. The ceilings are coming down on us. The walls are falling in on us. Everyone's screaming. The pilot's trying to direct the plane. I must be his co-pilot, but I'm not driving. I sit there and close my eyes and I say, I know the ancestors did not bring me this far not to get me here safely. And when I open my eyes, we are landed in green pastures. Everyone's hugging. It's like an international plane, right? Everyone's hugging. And they're smiling and they're so grateful we landed. But when I hug the pilot, it's like fire between us. He's really hot and I just kind of back off and I continue to hug everyone else. The next day, it's time for my flight for Africa. So what happens? I'm in Brussels airport and I'm sitting way on the other side of the airport. It's a huge airport that has a train system to get you from one side to the other. And there's this pilot, very handsome, thin, and he's looking at my shoes. And he's telling me how amazing my shoes are. And then he asked me, why am I sitting here? And I'm like, I'm waiting for my plane to go to the Gambia. And he's like, no, hon, they run these, there's 2 of them. This is a commercial flight. You need to be way on the other side. And luckily, I was there very early. He was like, I really wish you were getting on this plane, girl. We could just keep up this conversation. And he's just going, right? So it doesn't click. I saw him as a little kind of, effeminate. But I was like, okay, he's still a brother as far as I'm concerned. I'll move on. Get on the plane. There's turbulence on my first flight. There's turbulence on my second flight. There's turbulence on the third flight. Everyone's panicking, and I'm just sitting there calm because I already dreamed this. When I landed on a continent, that's when it occurred to me. My brothers who are gay, I refer to them as flaming. So when he hugged me, that was the flame. I didn't catch it. When I met him in the airport, he was clearly a gay man. But it didn't click that this is this is the pilot from my dream, right? It wasn't until I got to the continent and experienced the turbulence that I put everything together. You didn't have to be afraid because you knew what was going to happen already. And those are the kind of dreams I have. And that is why I take them a little more seriously than the average person would a dream, because they're more like premonitions. They're more like communication, And I've been talking long enough. Please, you go.
Yeah, no worries. I'm just taking in your story. It's so amazing, honestly, the whole journey. And like, I completely understand how like religion and programming and all these things like put so much fear in us. And I think it's really cool how you've been able to like find your own journey and tap into your dreams and like the connection you have with your dreams. That was a really cool story, honestly. And even the memory recall of how things can trigger memories, and it's such a long journey, uncovering trauma and peeling back all the layers and finally like being able to come back to your spirituality from being so lost. It's honestly a beautiful story.
Thank
Super
you.
Cool.
Thank
Love
you.
it.
All I can say now is I'm learning not to look back, and say like, if this didn't happen, maybe I'd be doing this. Or if this, I have to think of it in terms of all in divine order. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe my abilities came through too quickly, and my mom was fearful and she thought she was protecting me.
Yeah, well, children are just so tapped in and in tune. It's when all the trauma starts happening that we lose touch of that. Children are very clairvoyant, and it seemed like you had your natural abilities, I think, at the right time. And I think that's part of the journey, that we sign up for. We lose that, and the trauma and religious trauma is such a huge thing for a lot of people too, like teaching us that what's good and what's bad and what's scary. And then we learn to re-love these things and find God again, find our higher power, and not just think of it as like the big man in the sky, which I think puts a lot of people off, and they consider themselves atheists because they just don't know and they don't understand, and they relinquish that understanding, And so, yeah, I think definitely a lot of people could probably relate to that too.
That's it. And then the funny part is, growing up, I had friends from all different religions. Like, I had friends that were Episcopalian. We call that worse than Catholic. That's our little thing, right, in our family. Jehovah Witnesses, Buddhists, Baptists, like you name it. And my mom, they'd always invite me to church because they knew that my mom didn't make us go. So I'd be like, sure, let's go. They always have good food because church people can cook. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to go. And I would go growing up, but it never stirred me in any direction. I could never conform to this sort of indoctrination. It just wasn't me. And so now when I take more of a spiritual approach to things and recognize that there's that fluidity to it, right? Male, female, and creating all, and that all of that gender fluidity is in everything, males, females, plants, animals, like across the board, that I can accept that I am a part of this bigger system, right? And that how we are all part of the collective. And so I'm like, whatever people believe, I'm fine with it. I know my place in this, right? And when you walk in your purpose, you understand the bigger scheme. So it took me to the age of 55 to get it, right? Like I've had 2 birthdays here. My last birthday, I was here on the continent, and I was looking out at the ocean, like still in shock that I was here. And now this birthday, when I look back at my dream journal, I meant to have my book for you to see. I have a book.
Nice.
Dream, like now it's like 3-4 dreams a night. And I have it on my phone as well, because sometimes I can't write. I'll wake up and just hit my phone and start quoting it in my notes section, in my memo section. And so my plan, of course, is to put everything on my laptop, which I've started to do. And I want to have a book about these dreams and how I decoded them and how I came to this place. Because I think it's so important that we have a map for the people that are coming along, right? That they understand you're not alone, you're not crazy. Because when I heard the knocking, they have a mental health diagnosis for that. For the knocking, right?
Yeah.
You need to really get help. So I'm so glad. Yeah. So you go some places and you might get 302. That's what we call it in the States, right? They're ready to lock you up. So you have to really be careful who you're sharing your information with and the kind of support system. And so once again, finding, your Dream World podcast, finding you on Clubhouse is such a blessing. It really is.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's important too, because when it comes to analyzing your dreams, and I talk about this a lot to people, I tell people don't just Google it and rely on that because it might not resonate. Like you said, that's part of what people are trying to tell you it means. But yeah. I like how you were thinking deeper about like, how does this relate to me? And sometimes you don't understand right away. You need that life to trigger a memory or something, a connection will be made as your day goes on, and really having that deeper understanding and that relationship with your dreams that you have. It's cool that you're able to say, okay, I understand like how my dreams communicate with me. And also that leads me to the next thing I want to ask you, which is now that you're kind of settling in, like what's that conversation like with you, your dreams, your ancestors? Like, how does it feel like, and what's next, I guess?
I tend to be a person that overanalyzes. Like I have to research everything. And so I pull things apart and I look for deeper meanings. And a lot of times it's not that serious, And so the last dream I had, it was kind of hysterical because my uncle's wife, who's born the same month as me, I'm living like in this huge house. And, I guess my assistant goes and opens the door and she busts through the door like, does anybody in here speak English? When I tell you, I laughed so hard that I woke myself up out of my sleep. So the difficulty for me is just understand that sometimes things are not that difficult, right? That you are doing the right thing, that your abilities are they're you. Like I'm looking for the spiritual meanings, and I didn't know there were 33 spiritual gifts. And I found out I'm a gumbo of gifts. No one told me that. No one told me you could be claircognizant, clairsentient. What? All these clairs? What is that? So it just became this whole thing that I needed to really understand what these things meant and what they look like for other people, and knowing that it was okay that my stuff didn't look like that, right? That we all have them. We're just not as tapped in as we should be, right? Learning to follow your intuition is a process because we don't know whether it's coming from, our minds or our hearts or our guts when we have those feelings. And that's just the thing, just following what you feel. And being okay with that, knowing it's enough, you're complete. There may not be anything else that you need to do. But for me, I know that I was here to service the collective. And so other people are coming to me to help them explain their dreams. And I'm being drawn to tarot, and I'm going to assume there's a reason for that. There are no tarot cards here. So I have people that are bringing me things, or I'm going to have to make my own, right? Which will be another thing to do. So it's definitely been a self-discovery for me. Like I've started looking into crystals and stones, and like all of these things are related because I've seen them in my dreams. And I'm like, well, why would that be in my dream if it wasn't for me to know what that was about? And when I look back, there seems to be this chain of, oh yeah, that's your birthstone. Oh, yeah, someone gave you that as a gift and you didn't even know you had it. Like when you look around you, all the signs were there. So then it makes you wonder, how does the dream world kind of mesh into reality, right? And so for me, like, I came in and I asked you guys, like, what is lucid dreaming? Because I'm at the point now, I can't tell when I'm dreaming and when it's real. I know I laid down, but when you're in the middle of a dream, you don't remember that you laid down because everything seems so real. And you all were able to offer me tips to be able to distinguish between the two. And you offer so many things I never thought about. Meditating in a dream. I don't even think to talk in a dream most of the time. I'm just scared. Like, I'm like, why did they come in here and close the door on me? Oh, no, I got to go. Instead of me staying in the room and exploring, I'm ready to run because I'm like, whoa, this is not the usual way. I'm giving codes. What's happening? And everybody's stuff will come to them different. They know that I am an analyzer. So when I get messages, it's through code. I also get a lot of birds and different color butterflies. And I'll see things across the skyline that other people won't see. So I realize that that's for me to assist other people with that don't see it. I'll feel things, like I feel things very deeply when I'm talking to people. Their energy, I can feel that when I walk into a space as well. But I thought that was normal. I thought everyone did that, So now I know that it's something I'm supposed to share and I don't have to keep it to myself. Some of these things I'm saying to you, my closest family members have never heard. Right?
Yeah.
It's time.
Yeah. Definitely. I think it's definitely a great journey, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I love having this conversation with you and talking about dreams, and I'm sure we're going to have so many more when we catch each other on Clubhouse too. So yeah, that's cool. The rabbit hole with dreams goes so deep, and it's really about some people take their dreams way too literally and they have different analysis, but yeah, everyone's different, so we have to really figure out how you communicate with your dreams. Everyone's got their own way. So yeah, it's really cool that you're still figuring that out. It's a lifelong journey, we never have all the answers. I think that's the point, is we have little breadcrumbs of trails to follow, and we just kind of find our path. So I'm definitely excited to see how you bring your spiritual growth into, to the continent, and, what else you're going to start doing.
Thank you, Amina. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. It's a blast. I really enjoy speaking with you. First time I'm having this conversation outside of your room.
Cool. Yeah, for sure. I love having different conversations on my podcast about people I meet on Clubhouse that I find interesting, that I think that we could expand on deeper. So I want to also give you a chance to anything that you feel is calling to right now to just talk about, or maybe like a piece of advice to people on a spiritual journey, maybe in the beginning of it or in the middle, or still blocked out the trauma, or, what kind of advice do you have for somebody that's kind of going through it?
I think more importantly is that you have to know you're not alone, and really surround yourself with people that will be productive to your journey. And that's something that I've sought out to do. That's how I came to your room. I'm like, what? A dream room? Like, that was amazing for me. So what I've done here in Gambia is that I started a group of women that are highly intuitive in different ways: natal charts, literature, waist beads, just different things. And so we meet and we talk about the experiences we're having, right? Spiritual attacks and things to be wary of, and what stones are healing, what's good for a UTI, different things like that. So I think finding your community is a big thing. Know that you're not by yourself, and that doesn't mean if you have mental health problems, you should not seek counseling, because your spiritual community will let you know that this is more than just a spiritual journey, but you need additional assistance. The other thing I did is I have on Facebook a group called African Empaths on a Spiritual Journey, because we know on the continent, people will say you're possessed, you're a witch, because Islam and Christianity are the bigger religions. And so people will practice African spirituality, but they do it in secret, right? So I have this group called African Empaths on a Spiritual Journey, and we basically just talk about what it is to be empathic, what that feels like, and being highly intuitive, and how you recognize that, and you don't have to feel bad for being that way. And as you know, also, I do a lot about educating the people, period. Know your history, know where you come from, know who your grandparents' people are, right? My grandfather's people, my dad's side, paternal family, were spirit conjurers. Duh. How did I not know that? They tapped canes and spoke to spirits. They raised spirits, but nobody talks about that. So that knocking that I thought I was hearing was, in fact, probably canes tapping, right? Makes more sense. People on my mom's side, Gullah Geechees, they were into voodoo, hoodoo, and some practices earlier than that. No one ever told me that on that side of the family. So if you're going to be that one that your ancestors choose, expect that all those gifts that come from both sides are going to end up with you. And you need to be prepared on how you're going to move forward with that. And I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, that's such a good message. I think you hit the perfect topic because, yeah, I can just imagine how many people go through it thinking, with religion, thinking that what they're doing is bad and what the dreams that they're having are negative, and not really understanding that, it's all part of it. They actually have, deeper connections to spirituality, and that we can still be spiritual and still, you can still have your religion and your beliefs, but find out for yourself, like what the messages are there, and, that we're really fine. Like, we're not doing anything negative by, listening to your dreams and such.
Yes.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you so much. And where can people find you? I know you have a YouTube and you said your Facebook group. I'm going to put your links.
Okay. Yeah. My YouTube channel is about my journey to the continent. So I started in the U.S. You'll get to meet my son there because he actually came to the 3 countries with me. And then I track my repatriation. So I talk to people about how they can do it too, and how we can negate all the stereotypes about the continent. Like, it really is a very beautiful place. I live by the ocean, and that's why I really came here. I knew that the water was calling me, and it happened to be calling me from the continent. So this is where I am now. It doesn't mean that this is where I will stay forever, because I do have so many other countries I want to visit. The other piece is I have a podcast, AA Exit the Matrix, which you promised you'd be a guest on as well soon. And on my podcast, I like to interview different entrepreneurs and business folks that are on the continent and in the States that are doing amazing things that I think everyone can benefit from during their journey. Have some clubhouse rooms where I do Black Heritage trivia on Friday nights, and we talk about Black history. And also on tonight, actually, I have a room called High Vibrations to Africa, where people come in and they ask questions about all the stereotypes. Is it true that there are lions walking in the street? No, they're not walking in the street, but there are places that you can go to walk with the lions, right? No, there aren't alligators here, but there is an alligator park. And it's the way things are given, the way the information has been given to people. And some folks are so indoctrinated, they just believe all the negative stereotypes without seeing for themselves. And so it's my mission to negate all the negative stereotypes about the continent and encourage travel here.